Oh, I don't know if I can think of one. Yankee Doodle went to town riding on a pony with the girls. So you may have heard that song when you were young, but you didn't know the historical context. So you'd have to go back and back and back and find out where the word Yankee come from, what does it mean, and there was Captain Washington upon a great big stallion, a giving orders to his men, I think there was a million. So you remember the song. Okay? That's 200 years later, and I can still sing the song, and most of you can too. And so I know, for instance, if that's accurate, that song was written in the French Indian War when volunteers were coming into the British castle, because Captain Washington, he was a general in the Revolution. He was only a captain in the French Indian War, so et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You can read into it, but someone may then want to put it in historical context, so he'll write a story around it. So I think that the writer here is writing a story around this. I would say, if I were to, like in the Antique Roadshow, if I were to estimate how much this is worth, what period this is from, and so on and so forth, I would say that this is written sometime around the period of David. Why? Because I know, even if you don't know, that the main descendants of Japhet at this time were the Hittites. And we know that one of David's chief champions was Uriah the Hittite. And we know that in that period there were Hittites serving in David's army. So here we have, I would think that we have an alliance of Hittites and Shemites in the Davidic period, which reflects something of what's going on here, that the Japhethites are living in Shem's tents, or are allied to them under their, under a kind of client relationship at this point. And there are people like, I don't know if you saw that thing on television the other night on KOCE, really good, on the Druze in Israel. It was an hour program on the Druze. So I don't even know who the Druze are. Well, if you get a chance, see it. It's incredibly good. I'd already seen it. My daughter sent me a copy of it from New York because she was involved. The organization she works with knew the producers and they gave them advanced copies. But in any case, I just saw by accident on television the other night on KOCE, and the Druze are people, an Arab people, in Israel, Palestine, who side with the Israelis because the Muslims persecute them. And they join the Israeli army, and they take a higher percentage of casualties than the Israelis. They're all Israeli Jews do. And they go into high rank, and all their young people have to serve in the army by the request of their elders. And that's very clever, because that means all their young people get the most advanced military training. So they showed this one guy who's a Druze F-15 pilot, and they were in the cockpit with him. It was incredible footage. So that would be an indication of a person in the other person's tents, an alliance, et cetera. So that would be the kind of thing we're talking about here 3,000 years ago. Why am I saying this? Because I'm trying to say that we're getting narrowing groups of people. At this point, the narration is following Shem's descendants. So that's where the word Semite comes from. But you have to understand that Semites, Shem, Semites, that Shemites is a modern academic scholarly term developed in the late 19th century or so, because they were grouping the different languages of the earth, and they wanted to do it in the family of languages. So they got Semitic languages from Shem. Then the word anti-Semitic came into being. It's a very modern term, anti-Semitic. It only goes back to the late 1800s. It's a new term. You won't find it used in the 1700s. You'll never see a reference to it in the 1600s. So it follows academic scholarship. So, but you see, their grouping of the languages doesn't precisely accord with this situation here. I don't have time to show that. But in any case, Shem is obviously the focus of the interest of this author. And of course that story is a nasty story about neighbors. We know what our neighbors do. What do our neighbors do? They'll even sink so low as to bugger their fathers or their mother or whatever. I don't want to be crude, but that's what the story says. And as I know that Shem, I know that if we know anything about Shem, or rather Noah, and I don't think we know very much, if anything, that he didn't do this, and his sons didn't do this. This is poetry. But it's a good poetry. It shows you the period and how the people felt. So that's what I told you. Poetry is truer than history for the people who read it. Because the history is too complicated for anyone to either remember, understand, or even know. It's bad enough now when we're deluged with information. It's impossible then. All you can do is take the kernel out and put it in an epic poem of some kind in those days. Through rhyme, meter, abstract expression, good storytelling, that's what we're doing. Okay, so the Bible then follows this preferred line down, Shem, and so we get, if you want, most of this is in Genesis. If you notice how it goes, here is the patriarchs after the flood in chapter 5. And this goes right down a whole list. Adam was 130 years old and became the father of sons and daughters. And Adam lived for 800 years after the birth of Seth and blah, blah, blah. Seth was 105 years. This repeats previous material. Became the father of Enosh. Enosh was 90 years, became the father of Kenan. Kenan was 70 years, and so on. Jared, Enoch, Methuselah, and all the way down to Noah. Then from Noah, after the flood, we come down to Noah and his sons in chapter 9 and 10. These are the sons of Noah's sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and it gives them. And then we come down in chapter 11. These are Shem's descendants. So we're only interested in following Shem. Shem was 100 years old, became the father of Raxpat. 2 years after the flood, after the birth of Raxpat, Shem lived 500 years, became the father of sons and daughters. When Raxpat was 35 years old, he became the father of Shelah. After the birth of Shelah, Raxpat lived 403 years, became the father of sons and daughters. He only follows one name in every generation. He's running down through history. Where is he running to? Where is the narrator running to? Abraham, David ultimately, and others. But Abraham, not just David, Joshua, and others. So it's really Abraham. He's racing down to Abraham. Why? Abraham's the person he cares about, really. He's running down to Abraham as fast as he can go. He's got, he's decreasing the amount of the years, 900, 800, 700, 600 years, so down to a normal lifespan, or quasi-normal, and 120 years for most.